We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
So, speaking of ghosts and haunted buildings, I think we have another haunted building that has ghosts in it that we can talk about.
So it is
the
November.
It's very big.
It's very big.
It's white.
And it's November. It's the year of the election, and what an election it is. We won't even get into the politics.
We have a president.
We are going to talk about other presidents because the White House is famously haunted.
It is. It's located on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C.
Yes, it is.
In case you didn't know.
Have you ever been there?
No.
Me neither.
Farthest east I've been is El Paso.
Wow.
So not very far.
I've been to Boston. I think that's the closest I've been to the White House.
That's a lot closer than I got.
It's a lot closer than El Paso.
Yeah, very much closer.
So, not only, and I don't remember who it was that said this because it's the one thing I didn't write down, but it was a journalist of some note. He said, the White House has the best stories, and I'd call them the most verified. So, because credible people saw these.
The scientist journalists.
So, I want to talk about Abraham Lincoln first because he's the most popular. He's the one that's the most cited. He's been seen by the most people doing the most different things. So I think my favorite story about Abraham Lincoln is it was one night, sometime in the 1940s. It doesn't have a specific day or month. But Prime Minister Winston Churchill was visiting in the White House, and he went and took his bath and walked al fresco, nude, into his room and was smoking a cigar. So there you go, mental image. Naked Winston Churchill smoking a cigar naked. And he looks up, and lo and behold, he's got a visitor in his room leaning against the fireplace. And he looks at this visitor, because there he is, butt naked, and it's Abraham Lincoln. And so needless to say, he was a little bit surprised. And Churchill kind of just took it in stride. He wasn't scared. He just says he tapped some ash off his cigar, said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." Churchill says Lincoln smiled, then disappeared. And Churchill, who isn't easily rattled because, he didn't run screaming from the room, he actually addressed this apparition that he saw, but he did refuse to sleep in that bedroom ever again. And he did visit the White House several times over the course of those World War II
and post-World War II years, yeah.
And the other thing, while we're talking about World War II, they do say that Lincoln tends to appear more often when the country is under a lot of duress. So a lot of the sightings...
I want to go there now then.
Okay, a lot of the sightings that we... I know,
right now, stop podcasting. We're going to Washington, D.C.
We're going to Washington.
Tell my work I'll be back.
Yeah, so they said he was around a lot, and a lot of the stories you hear are from kind of that World War II, 1940s era. He does pop up even as recently as the Bushes, but yeah. So if you want to go Abraham Lincoln hunting, go when there's turmoil in the U.S.
It's funny, is I actually recently posted on Facebook that I was announcing my candidacy for president of 2024 with my running mate being Jimmy Lynn Darling, and our first act of business as president and vice president once elected would be to investigate the Lincoln bedroom.
Awesome.
And
Can I come?
Yeah. Okay. Of course.
I'll make a campaign
so
donation.
So vote for Tim 2024 so we can
investigate the Lincoln
bedroom and then maybe help America. Or I might step down. We don't know. But the first person that actually claimed they saw Lincoln's ghost was Grace Coolidge, the wife of then President Calvin Coolidge. She said that the lanky former president was standing looking out a window of the Oval Office across the photomac to the former Civil War battlefields beyond. Now, Lady Bird Johnson, wife of President Lyndon Johnson, also said that she felt his presence one night while watching a television program about his death.
Right, and I think the interesting thing about Grace Coolidge is the room that they were in was the yellow oval room, and in Lincoln's time, that was actually his personal library. And so, the fact that she would see him there, I could see him standing in his library, staring out, the window thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this whole Civil War issue and this general and that thing? And I've never been a president during the Civil War, so I don't know exactly what they think about, but that makes total sense to me, which is why some of these, to me, seem very credible.
I guess a lot of the reportings, or most of the reportings of seeing President Lincoln was during FDR's time in the Oval Office, or in the White House. And I guess his wife, Eleanor, said she used to use the Lincoln bedroom as her study. And while she was in there, she would feel his presence there late at night. Also, there was Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands actually visited the White House. And while she was there, she heard a knock on her bedroom door in the night. And when she answered it, she said she saw Lincoln's ghost wearing his top hat, and then he just kind of fainted away.
Right.
Just right in front of her.
Now,
it's like, hello, here I am, goodbye.
Yeah, and Mrs. Roosevelt also had a staff member by the name of Mary Eben, and she was a secretary to Mrs. Roosevelt. And she said one day she was passing the Lincoln bedroom and just kind of noticed some movement, so she, glanced in to see who was there. And she said she noticed a tall, thin man sitting on the edge of the bed, and he was pulling on a pair of boots. And she realized that's not just some dude pulling on boots. I know who that is. That's Abraham Lincoln. And at that time, he would have been dead for about 75 years. So it had to have been his ghost and not the actual man.
I guess there's been reports of staff members hearing pacing going on in the room above them, and other staff members are like, oh, don't worry, it's just President Lincoln. He's fine.
Right. So President Truman, he wrote a letter to his wife because Truman's wife did not like Washington, D.C., and so she didn't come to live with him at the White House. And so he wrote her a letter, and it said, I sit in this old house all the while listening to ghosts walk up and down the hallway. At 4 a.m., I was awakened by 3 distinct knocks on my bedroom door. No one was there. Damned place is haunted, sure as shootin'. It's from Truman. Damned place is haunted, sure as shootin'.
Give him hell, Harry.
That place is haunted, I think.
Oh, yeah.
According to psychics, they say it's haunted.
So did you hear about President Reagan's dog, Rex?
No, I did not.
President Reagan, he said he never saw any ghosts. But his dog Rex, it's a little terrier of some type, as I remember. It was a Springer Spaniel, something like that. Anyway, he would go to the Lincoln bedroom and would not go inside, but would sit outside the door and bark.
Interesting.
And he'd go everywhere else in the house, but he would not go into the Lincoln bedroom.
Right.
I've heard all about the Lincoln bedroom ever since I was a little kid. People always telling stories about how the Lincoln bedroom haunted and how people don't sleep in there and whatnot. And I mean that's probably to jump ahead a little bit. Maybe I'll save this for the bucket list.
Right.
But I've just all growing up, I've heard stories about the Lincoln bedroom.
So I want to come back to the Lincoln family, but while we're talking about dogs, there is one other animal spirit that they see at the White House, and it's a demonic cat, and they see it in the basement. And they say that this cat will show up right before some big tragedy. So they would see this demonic cat right before the stock market crash in the 1920s. They saw it right before the Civil War. They saw it right before, what's the other thing? World War II.
And before FDR or JFK was shot.
Yeah. So this cat, if I remember right, it appears at first, if you kind of see it in the corner of your eye, you think, oh, one cute little black kitten, but then it turns all scary and weird when you look at it directly.
I wonder if Stephen King knew about this when he wrote his sequel to The Shining, Dr. Sleep.
I don't know.
Because in the movie, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but he's working, it's, come play with us, Danny. Danny, when he's, I can't remember his name.
And he's older?
Danny Torrance is older. He's working in an old folks home, and there's this cat that he sees going into patients' bedrooms. And when he goes into the bedroom, it's basically he, at that point, ushers the person into the next life. It basically helps them pass away. But it's every time that this cat goes into a bedroom, that person dies that night.
Ooh.
So
I don't think I've read that one.
Yeah, I've only seen the movie, I haven't read the book, but when you were saying that with the cat at the White House, that's just kind of what it reminded me of.
That sounds familiar.
Is that they did that in Dr. Sleep. Whenever the cat went into a patient's room, that patient, it was his time to go.
Ooh, we have a movie we need to watch now. Dr. Sleep?
Dr. Sleep. It is the sequel to The Shining.
Ooh, I did not know there was a sequel. Okay, so back to the Lincoln family. The Lincoln family was very interesting. In fact, I think we need to add to our podcast topic list Mary Todd Lincoln. That was the wife of Abraham Lincoln, and she was all sorts of crazy into the paranormal and seances and spiritualism.
Well, we all know Abraham Lincoln was a vampire hunter.
Yes, he was.
Well, we've seen the documentary.
Yeah, I've seen it. I own it.
Ooh. No,
He used his axe and he hunted the vampires.
Exactly. So Willie Lincoln was one of their sons, and he died in the White House. He was 11, and they're pretty sure it was typhoid fever. Somewhere online there was a movie, or somewhere online there was a documentary that said it was a train accident, and he didn't die in a train accident. He died in the White House.
Diphtheria or typhoid fever.
The site I was on said most likely typhoid fever, but some disease, not a train. And
he was 11.
He was 11 years old. He was seen not only by his parents, but also by the staff of the Grant administration in the 1870s. And then there's a lady, also not a Lincoln family member, but kind of related to Lincoln as far as occurrences. In 1865, there was a lady named Mary Surratt, and she was convicted of conspiring to assassinate President Lincoln and sentenced to death. Well, her daughter, Annie, pleaded for her mother's life. She
Was it
didn't want
Annie
her mother
or Jane?
to die. It was Annie.
Okay.
At least the website I have says Annie.
Okay. I think I've seen it as Jane Surratt, but I could be wrong.
And even after Mary was hanged and after Annie was long gone, way past when they would normally be alive, apparently Annie's ghost reportedly continues to knock on doors in the White House, pleading for her mother's life. So that's another
Lincoln tie-in?
Lincoln-related ghost. Not related family-wise, but as far as goings-on. And we'll need to cut out this big space.
That's okay. Do you have anything else on the Lincolns?
That's what I was looking for. Not on the Lincolns, but I do have other ghosts. Okay, so anyway, if this interests you, look online. There are so many stories of different people that have seen Abraham Lincoln's ghost in different. He's probably the most cited ghost, but he's not the only presidential ghost at the White House.
Yeah, you can YouTube search White House ghosts and get some very interesting videos and some very interesting commentary.
So another one of the ghosts, and he's kind of a grumpy ghost, is Andrew Jackson. I would call him probably a type 2. He's grumpy. He's been heard at the White House since the 1860s, and they claim to hear him stomping around, swearing, and letting loose his signature guttural laugh.
Yeah, Old Hickory was kind of cantankerous in life, is what I understand.
Yeah, so if there's a swearing ghost at the White House, and it's Andrew Jackson. Now, Thomas Jefferson is a kinder, more genteel ghost. In the 1860s, he was heard by Mary Todd. She says that she heard him playing his violin in the Yellow Oval Room. And it was so clear that she said to a friend, my, how that Mr. Jefferson does play that violin. Abigail Adams, who was the wife of John Adams, the second president, she was actually the first lady to live in the White House. And she used to use the East Room to dry sheets. It wasn't always the fanciest house ever.
Well, it was first being constructed, and they hadn't got the furniture and stuff in there yet.
Right.
And they were still working on the other wings, and it was a dry and warm area, and so...
So, yeah, she'd go in there and dry her sheets. And then she died in 1818, but ever since then, a lot of residents, a lot of staff has claimed to see her walking around with her arms outstretched as though she's carrying sheets. And I just think that if you die and you're doomed to do your laundry forever, that would suck huge big time.
What did she do wrong in life? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, I hate doing laundry in real life. This is how I do laundry. I'll wash it, I'll dry it, I'll bring it upstairs. If it sits there long enough, Chad gets annoyed and he puts it away for me. I don't do that on purpose, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
That's not the intent, but that's how it works out. So the man who who sold the government the land that the White House is on. His name is David Burns, and he sold it in 1791. And it's actually, he owned the land that not only the White House, but like the entire city of Washington, D.C. sits on. And people say that they, like a guard and a valet in the Oval Office, have both said they've heard a voice that says, "I'm Mr. Burns," and it kind of drags out. And I would assume that they're hearing this with their an audible, because I can't imagine, valet or White House staff in the Oval Office, with their recorders going, "Is there anyone here with us?" So they must have heard this, audibly, which I think is super cool. So, Tim, when you are president in 2024, after the Lincoln bedroom, can we go to the Oval Office?
Yes, we can. I also want to go to the Rose Room.
I have heard about the Rose Room.
The Rose Room was Andrew Jackson's bedroom at the time when he lived there, and that is actually said to be one of the most haunted houses in the White House. It's probably a room.
Yeah, it's a room.
It's not a house.
I heard it's the second most haunted after the Lincoln bedroom.
That would be making it one of the most haunted.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
But yeah, it's up there on the list. So the Rose Room, Oval Office, the whole building, really. I don't even have to investigate. I'll just have Brandy walk in and tell me where everything's at.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the one I didn't write down. I wrote notes, but one of the last presidential ghosts, before we get into some non-presidential ghosts, was Dolly Madison. And Dolly Madison put together the Rose Garden. And considering, so she would have been in the late 1700s?
Mm-hmm. Early, yeah.
Early
it'd be like
1800s.
late 1700s.
So I thought she was 1700s. But she put together this rose garden, and considering the time, it would not have been easy. But
It would have been 1812.
Okay.
1814, because she was the one that saved Washington's picture from
the fire.
From the fire in 1812, which is another ghost we can talk about.
Yes. So she put this rose garden together, and now the rose garden is one of the most famous gardens in the world. It's beautiful. It's where they do a lot of photo op kind of stuff at the White House. And who was it that wanted to dig it up because she didn't like it?
Edith Wilson.
Yes. So Woodrow Wilson's wife said, "I don't like these. I'm going to dig them up." So she got started to redo the rose garden. Well, Dolly Madison did not like that at all, and she came down, and her ghost appeared and basically said,
To the workers.
To the workers, and the workers are like, "All right, we're out of here." And so, yeah, the rose garden is still there. So, so don't mess with Dolly Madison's roses. She gets pissed off. All right, so the Washington Critic newspaper in 1883 talked about some ghosts that are there that aren't necessarily presidential. They have an old man that haunts the second floor bedrooms. And this came from a White House attaché who related that the spirit is aged and bent with a long phosphorescent white beard and hair. He's ghastly, wavy, bright glaring eyes, and long scrawny fingers. His walk is noiseless but stately, and his presence is always indicated by a particular electric sensation, which pervades the surrounding air. And it was alleged that this same ghost also disturbed President Ulysses S. Grant at night, but the apparition never became kind of a famous ghost simply because there were so many other presidential or first lady ghosts. This one never really became popular. And then another non-White House ghost, as far as it's in the White House, but it's not presidential, was in 1897, and there was a White House policeman making his rounds, and he saw a light in the greenhouse complex that used to stand on the west side of the building. It was knocked down in 1902, so it's not there anymore. But the officer said, I'm going to go and see what's going on, make sure that's this is all good. And at the time, there's a lot of really prized exotic flowers, and so he's protecting those as well. And so he relates the story that as he entered the conservatory, he was met by a tall, beautiful lady dressed in the fashion of the early 19th century. And he spoke to her, and then she vanished. But he heard a musical laugh and saw a phosphorescent glow that stayed in the greenhouse for quite a while after she left. So he checked the doors, searched the conservatory, but there was no sign or trace of this woman. So about a month later, the same light appeared, and the guard went to the conservatory. He felt kind of a rush of air. He felt a light touch on his shoulder, and he turned and saw the same lady as before. And this time, it scared him because it actually touched him, and he passed out. So later, he told the story to his superiors, and they fired him. So he told the story to friends, and then a little while later, a journalist interviewed him, and that's how we have this story today. But yeah, he got fired for his ghostly sightings. And I think this last one to me is kind of strange. They call it the Thing, but it's a boy, so I don't like that they call him the Thing. This thing that haunts the White House was first seen in 1911, and it was President Taft's military aide, whose name was Major Archibald Butt. And I'm sorry, I would change my name if my last name was Butt. And if you're listening to this and your last name is Butt, my apologies, but that just seems like you're going to get teased. Anyway, he wrote to his sister Clara, and he said, "It seems that the White House is haunted. The ghost, it seems, is a young boy. From its description, I should think about 14 or 15 years old. They say that the first knowledge one has of the presence of the Thing is a slight pressure on the shoulder, as if someone were leaning over your shoulder to see what you might be doing." So that's what he told his sister. But when Major Butt repeated the Taft's gossip about the Thing to the president, Taft flew into a rage. Taft was not keen on ghost stories, and he said it's a very serious thing to have the ghost story get out among the people of the country. He didn't want people thinking that the White House was haunted. He wanted to think everything was cool. So Taft ordered Butt to tell the White House housekeeper that the first member of the staff to repeat stories about the Thing would be fired. So I'm almost getting the impression that Taft named it the Thing, lest he call it a ghost.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was Willie Lincoln.
Ooh, possibly.
11, 14-ish boy.
Could be. So the Thing might be Willie Lincoln.
Maybe it is a thing.
Could be a thing. Could be a demonic thing.
Did they ever mention how that made them feel, like what emotions they got from it, or just that they saw it?
Just that they saw it. That's all we have.
Oh, okay.
So we've talked a lot about things that we've seen in the late 1800s and the early 1900s and the 40s, so people could say, are people still seeing ghosts? Yes, actually. This is one of my favorites. Jenna Bush, so the daughter of George Bush Jr. I can never remember their middle initials. So George Bush the son, his daughter Jenna, her phone rang in the middle of the night. They're living in the White House because it's their house, right? And they had a fireplace in the room. And all of a sudden they started hearing 1920s style piano music just as clear as day coming out of the fireplace. So Jenna's sister was named Barbara, named after Grandma, and she jumps into her sister's bed and they're both laying there, wide awake listening to 1920s music blaring from their fireplace. And the next week they heard the same thing, but this time it was opera music. And they talked themselves out of it, but they said, "You would not believe what we heard last night." And he says, "Oh, Jenna, you wouldn't believe what I have heard." And she said that to one of the White House staff. And he's like, "Oh, that's nothing." And it doesn't go into what he said, at least in this article. Maybe it's somewhere else. She said they were really, really close to running into their parents' house or their parents' room, save us from the ghosts. And what Jenna said later, she says it's haunted, it's scary, but they came with all good intentions. They were friendly ghosts. And in everything that I've read on these White House ghosts, I've never gotten the impression that anything was malevolent. I mean, people got scared and people were startled, but...
And there's some grumpy, but...
Yeah, there's some grumpy things, but I never got the impression that anybody... Well, except for the demonic cat. And the fact that Abraham Lincoln shows up before bad stuff happens.
So going back to the Jenna Bush one, there is a YouTube video with Kelly Clarkson on that where Jenna Bush is actually relating that story. So if you go out to YouTube and you can search that, it's only about 5 minutes long, but it was quite interesting to have her talking with Kelly Clarkson about that experience.
Oh, that's cool. What were you going to say, Tim?
Oh, exactly that. I watched that on the way here.
Oh.
Well, I didn't watch it. I listened to it, but
Oh, cool.
yeah, I listened to that exact story.
So did I leave out any details?
No, that's exactly it's almost like they just took the transcript of the interview and put it there on the paper that you're reading. So yeah, that's pretty much word for word exactly what she said on that interview. So it was kind of cool to actually hear it firsthand. Her telling her story.
So as I was doing other research, I tend to I get more into the Lincoln ghost. I'm with Tim. If I was ever to get into the White House and just had full reign and could go wherever I want, I'd go to the Lincoln bedroom. He's one of my favorite presidents, and just the time period I think is really cool. So I spent most of my time researching kind of that era. But as I was looking and doing the research, the Obamas claimed to see stuff. The Clintons had some stories, and again, I didn't read them, but it seems like almost every president had some sort of a ghostly encounter, with the exception of maybe Taft, and he was just grumpy about it.
Yeah, they did say that some of the activity did subside a little bit after President Truman. They did the renovation of the White House. That some of the activity subsided. But there's still activity there. Yeah,
so some of the activity subsided, but right after those renovations, because when they renovated it, they pretty much gutted it and, pretty much rebuilt it from scratch. But I guess when he did that, Abraham Lincoln surfaced a little bit more, and the story goes Abraham Lincoln got kind of annoyed at Mary Todd Lincoln because she spent some money to refurbish it. And he said something like, "I don't know why you're spending so much money on this damned place." And so when Mrs. Truman went and did a massive overhaul, it was easier for her to
do it because she wasn't living there anyway.
Yeah,
because she was back in Kansas,
yeah, she was like, "I don't like it here. It's dark, it's dull, it's dreary." So she did this big overhaul. But I guess Abe Lincoln was there. Why are you putting so much money into this damned place?
Did you know Harry Truman actually wrote to his wife, and he said, "I sit here in this old house and work on foreign affairs, read reports, and work on speeches, all the while listening to the ghost walk up and down the hallways and even right here in the study. The floors pop and the drapes move back and forth, and I can just imagine old Andy Jackson and Teddy Roosevelt having an argument over Franklin Roosevelt."
Yeah.
It was actually a letter he wrote to his wife.
Yeah, he seems like a character.
There's just so much that building has seen so much history.
And I'm
in
trying
the short time it's been around.
I also think it was Truman. And let me see. I thought I wrote this down. Truman said one other funny thing about the White House. It was related. I can't find it. It was related by his daughter, and his daughter basically said, he had so many paranormal experiences at the White House. He was totally a believer, and she said, but he will not be coming to haunt the White House because he said, "I don't understand why Abe Lincoln spends so much time here. Nobody in their right mind would want to come here on purpose," meaning the White House. So if you're going to be looking for Truman's ghost,
it won't be there.
He will not be there.
Oh, darn.
Although he'd be a really interesting one to be there,
Yeah. I think any of them would be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Really.
Oh, I do.
I think it would be fun to talk to Abraham Lincoln.
I would like to talk to Abraham Lincoln. I find him fascinating. Okay, so I was really excited to talk about this topic because when people ask me, how did you get into the paranormal? There's not really one defining moment. That being said, when we decided on this topic, it reminded me of when I was in probably 2nd or 3rd grade. And you remember when you were little and you'd go to grade school and you'd get the Scholastic book orders? Did you ever get those, Tim?
Oh, I love that. You go in the room, they'd have the books up sometimes, or you'd order them on the... I'd get so many books.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't read, but I'd get books.
But you'd get them for 75 cents or $1.
Could.
Yeah. And if you didn't, all your friends would look at you weird, like, well, you're not getting books. But one of the books I remember getting was a little book of Ghosts of the White House. And that's where I first heard about the fact that Lincoln haunts the White House and the Lincoln bedroom. And so that would be one of my things in my early years that kind of piqued my interest in ghost hunting. So what I did is after I kind of researched ghosts and got tired of reading about Lincoln. No, I actually didn't get tired of reading about Lincoln. But there are a couple of books I ran across that I would totally buy. But I'm not going to right now. Maybe later. These might be good ideas for Christmas.
Buy them on the Kindle.
So
Save the paper.
kind of a big people book, kind of, and I haven't looked into any of these. So if you buy it and it's really stupid, sorry. But they looked cool when I looked online. So one was called White House Ghosts by Robert Schlesinger, and that's hard to say. Don't make me say it again. And that one looked interesting. Then there was one that was cute, looked for kids, called, and this I tried to find the one that I had, but I'm old. It's probably out of print. And it's called Ghosts of the White House. It's by Cheryl Tarness, Tarness. And then there was one that looked to me, it looked more adultish, but like a lot of pictures, like maybe a coffee table sort of a book. And it's called Who's Haunting the White House? The President's Mansion and the Ghosts Who Live There. And it's by Jeff Bellinger and Rick Powell. So those three looked interesting to me.
So along those lines with the education, there's an interesting YouTube video. It's a TED Talk about an author that wrote one of the books, and I didn't note down his name, but it's about a 15-minute video, and it talks about him contacting the White House and wanting to be able to write a book about ghosts. And it first came out, it was kind of like, not interested. And then he said, well, what I want to do is teach history to the children through the use of the White House and the ghosts. And they said, okay, tell us more. And he was given access and was able to go in and do his book. And he was doing his TED Talk around that information. It's quite an interesting deal where the White House was interested in it with the teaching of the history to children through this. He says, because we can relate history through ghosts and ghost stories. And he said in a lot of ways that's what history is. It's a way for us to connect with our history.
So we just need to have a thing. We'll just start a thing called a Tim Talk, and you can contact the White House and tell them that we want to teach kids history.
Like how when they decided that they were going to remove all the layers of paint that were on the White House, because in order to keep it white, they just kept painting it and painting it and painting it. And it got to the point where it kind of made it look like crap because they were covering up some of the architecture. And when they decided to strip it down, there was 45 layers of paint on the White House that they took off.
It was like 7 inches of paint.
Yeah, all the little cornices and everything with the fine detail is like
all covered in.
Straight.
See, I like to paint, and I think if you were to go down in my family room and do the same thing, you'd find 7 or 8 layers.
Since I've known you.
Hey. Let's see, in my front room, there would be white, there would be a maroon, there would be kind of a peachy color, which was awful. There's a sage green, there's white, there's... maybe that's all. Oh, there's a purple.
With Raven, have brush, will paint.
There's a color that I thought was going to be like a Wendy's Frosty, and it wasn't, and now it's gray. So there's at least 8 layers.
You know, I didn't see anywhere. Did you see anything about like whether or not George Washington was haunting the building?
I never saw any reference to a George Washington ghost.
The building wasn't completed when he died before the building was completed. He was actually helped set the cornerstones, but he never lived in that building or the area.
That would make sense then.
You could still haunt it, though.
You could.
But there's not necessarily that connection.
See, he could be like walking up and down the halls with chains going, I could have lived here. I set the cornerstones. He could haunt maybe he's haunting the cornerstones.
He's probably hanging out in Mount Vernon.
I could have lived here. I could have been a contender.
Exactly. See, you get it. He's probably on the Potomac. He probably haunts the Potomac in a boat.
I would just be curious. Did you say a boot?
A boat. She's Canadian.
She's out in a boot?
Out in a boot.
Hey.
My
What do-
Canadian
what do
friends are
you
going to
know,
make
eh?
fun of me.
They probably already are. They're Canadian. They make fun of Americans all the time. Is what they do.
Yeah.
That's actually who I play my video game with. It's a bunch of
Canadians.
Canadians. Yes, I would. I mean, I'm just curious. Yes, I would want to see President Lincoln and some of the other presidents like Andrew Jackson and that haunt the haunted house of whiteness.
Tim must have sniffed some bleach before he came to.
It's just overflowing from you. Like, I just don't know.
So, yes, I would actually like to go to the White House too. I've never been there. It's full of history. I would love to go sit there. I would love to just go see it.
Here's what we'll do. We'll take a tour of the White House.
Awesome.
They're going to know my plan because I'm saying it right now on the show that they won't listen to. I would love it if someone in the White House listened to the show, but we'll go in for the tour.
The NSA is doing so now.
They listen. I'll just turn
Because you've already said White House.
I'll turn my phone off. It's too late. They know. So we'll do a tour, right? And then I'll fake a heart attack. And while everyone's focused on me, you sneak away into the bedroom and investigate Lincoln's bedroom.
Okay, and then
Or when I become president.
when you revive, then we'll have Dawn pass out so that you can go and investigate in the Lincoln.
No,
bedroom.
just take video with you.
Well, wouldn't you want to say I investigated?
FaceTime it.
Yeah,
While I'm on my way to the hospital. Just like, hold on 1 second, guys. I need to make a call. And then when they see that you're investigating Lincoln's bedroom, I'm like, no, this is not live. This is an old video I'm watching on YouTube. They'll believe it. It will work.
All right.
Yay.
That's our plan. Now, I have heard that the White House is not as big as we think it is, and that it's in a busier part of town than we think it is.
You know, that's probably true.
So,
They had to rebuild it after the aliens blew it up
yeah.
on
And
Independence
then
Day.
Will Smith had to save him.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm interested to... Sometimes if I think it's bigger than it is, I go, it looks really small. Sometimes if I think it's small, it looks bigger than I expected. So,
Well, that's kind of how I felt about the Winchester Mansion. I mean, it wasn't smaller than I expected, but it was right in the middle of a busy city. Like, I expected it to be out in a field somewhere, away from everything. No.
Well,
No.
it was at one point.
It was at one point. Not when I went. It was right smack dab in the middle of San Juan, California. And that would make sense about the White House, too. Like, you only see it in movies.
Right.
Or on TV. So
yeah, you only see it on the news, and it's just the White House. But I've heard that there's like projects all around it. And it's kind of in a slummy part of town, actually. From
it's in
what
the
I've heard.
slums.
So
Just like the Hotel Cortez.
yes, it is.
Cecil Hotel. They've renamed it.
Is it the Hotel Cortez now? The
No,
Cecil?
Cortez was the name they used in American Horror Story. It's actually apartments now. And I know someone that lives in California that's trying to get us in there to investigate.
Ooh, that will be fun.
I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but
Yeah, we can try.
I've got people.
You know people.
I know people.
Okay. Alrighty, well, I think that's all the stuff I've got. So I'm going to give a little shout out. We have a new investigator named Candace, and she's been on the last couple of residentials I've been on. And she has not given me permission to tell the story, but I'm telling it anyway. Because it's fun. And
If she gets mad, it's not Candace, it's somebody else.
and my name
We'll
is
call her
something else.
Debbie.
No, she won't care. So she has, voiced a desire to find out what her specialty is, because everybody has a talent, whether or not you've tapped into it yet or not, or care to or not. But she has voiced, wanting to find what hers is. And so every time we go on an investigation, I'm like, okay, don't look at your instruments. Come into this room. What do you feel? What do you think? Just trying to figure out what it is. Well,
She's intuitive.
she is. And then we took her to...
I've never met her either.
You can just feel her vibes.
Yeah, off of you.
So...
she's that's one of her main ones is she's intuitive.
Yep.
It's kind of just knows things without knowing why she knows them, but she knows them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she actually said that at this investigation. But she was on that one that we told you about with the 15-year-old daughter that was playing with the Ouija board and the orbs in the videos. And so she's actually the one that found that main portal. I took her in the kitchen. I knew that there was some sort of energy there, but I hadn't really tapped into what it was yet. And she went and stood right in the middle of it. And she says, "I'm feeling dizzy." And so then we, long story short, but we figured out that's where the portal was. And so she actually went and found, there were 4 portals in the home. She found 2 of the 4. So she's also a portal finder. She's a portal master.
That's cool.
Okay. So
Does she know how to close them?
not yet, but we're gonna teach her.
She needs to work on that.
Yep.
She'll be very valuable with that.
We have to practice her finding them. We're gonna kind of focus on that. So anyway, if you're interested in knowing what your superpower is, you've got one. Just kind of focus.
Yes,
You know,
invisibility and flying are the two main ones
Absolutely.
that everybody wishes that they could have.
I'll do invisibility.
You know, that's probably a good one.
Alrighty. Well, we watch the websites advanceparanormal.com and wisps.org. We always put up new information. I got my shirt and I wear it, and it's pretty awesome. I feel cool.
I wore mine to Disneyland and took pictures.
So do you have a Facebook feed?
Yes, if you haven't followed us on Facebook or Facebook, follow us on Facebook. Sorry, I was thinking Wisps and Advanced Paranormal. On Facebook, you have to type in Wisps, and then you have to type in Wasatch Investigative Society of Paranormal Studies. Wisps is really cool, but to say the whole name is super hard. And then look for Advanced Paranormal Services, because we post cool stuff.
About ghosts.
Yep. So, alrighty. I think we should call this an episode.
It's an episode.
Peace out, butterflies.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.